The wife cheats on her husband for 25 years. Her husband discovers the secret, but it is too late. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. The story kicks off with Mark on a luxury yacht in Milan, looking genuinely joyful. Soon after, he's at a fashion show with his wife and their daughter Sophie. It's obvious that he's a shoe designer, judging by how all the models are strutting in footwear she's crafted. Once the show wraps up, Mark and Sophie head to the model's dressing room, greets the fashion designer and her assistant Ralph. At that moment, Sophie tells her dad she's leaving because her husband Jake is waiting outside. She says her goodbyes to her mom and leaves with Jake. Meanwhile, Ralph's friend and assistant tries to persuade her not to retire, but firmly states she's made up her mind and that now's the perfect time to quit. As Peter approaches, comments, "You know, Ralph," and Ralph responds, "Yes." Then Peter says, "I'll leave you both here and wait for you at the restaurant to celebrate today's milestone." A little later, sits down with Mark at the restaurant where he's waiting. They exchange friendly chat, and he mentions how much he loves her shoes but isn't fond of or Ralph. They order dishes from the menu, and Mark remarks that the restaurant's fish is unmatched in Milan. It's revealed that regularly travels to Milan to finalize deals with shoe store owners. Then asks, "Have you ever thought about being with someone else besides me?" Mark quickly replies, "No, I've spent more than half my life with you and my love for you has never waned. I've never felt the need for anyone else in my life." She responds, "I love you so much. If I didn't, I'd have left you a long time ago." A few days later, tells Mark she's heading back to Milan to settle some business matters with clients. She packs her bags and departs. 9 months pass, and we see Mark removing all of his clothes from their house. At the same time, Sophie visits him and finds him gathering her mother's belongings. He hands her a bundle and says, "I don't want to see these clothes again." She replies, "We're the same size, but I don't want them." At that moment, Mark finds phone, pockets it, and slips it into his desk drawer. Sophie then gives him a note from her mom, which he finds says simply, like, that night, a voice message comes through his phone. Mark listens in shock as a man's voice whispers, "I miss you so much. I haven't heard your voice in ages and I wish I could see you." Mark is stunned. He never imagined might been unfaithful for so long. He leaves laptop open with her phone nearby and heads upstairs to sleep, but thoughts keep him awake. Later, he returns to his office and starts browsing through her photos stored on the laptop, mostly family pictures, until he notices a folder titled Love. When he tries to open it, it's password protected. He guesses multiple combinations but fails each time. Then he scrolls through more photos and finds images of with Ralph from the last fashion show they attended, images clearly showing their close connection. Suddenly, an email pops up from someone named Ralph. In the message, Ralph expresses his love for and pleads with her to abandon everything and come to him to reignite their past romance. The next morning, Mark confronts Ralph at the fashion house, asking, "Were you involved with?" Ralph replies, "No, but I wish we'd been closer. You're not the right man for her. I don't get why she loved or married you." The owner of the fashion house then says she knew secretly had someone else, but it was Ralph. She doesn't know who it was. Mark leaves and visits Sophie, sharing what he's uncovered. But Sophie refuses to believe him and insists, "I won't let you speak badly about my mom." She sets up a spare room for him to stay in, but once she leaves, Mark quietly departs the house. Back home, Mark sends Ralph a message. "The woman you emailed doesn't exist anymore," and he deletes his account. The next morning at his office, Mark asks his secretary to call Joy, the cybersecurity expert, and have her come immediately. When Joy arrives, he gives her the email address, instructing her to find out who's behind it. When she asks if he plans to confront the sender, Mark replies grimly, "No, I want to find and kill him." Joy assumes he's joking, and she promises she'll get the data. He stays in the office all day until another email from Ralph arrives, claiming that love never ends, that their memories are forever, and he ends by saying how happy he was that responded to his earlier message. Later, Mark approaches the security manager and says, "You used to be in the military. "Do you know where I can buy a gun?" The man refuses. That night, Mark keeps trying different passwords to unlock a folder on her laptop, finally typing Lake, and it opens. Inside, he's stunned to find pictures of with another man, images of their meetings at restaurants, by the lake, even in a hotel room. It's clear she'd been seeing him. Joy then provides Mark Ralph's details. He lives in Italy on 36th Street in Milan. Mark immediately asks his secretary to book a flight to Milan and a hotel. When he arrives, he tries to reach Ralph's building but can't get in. Its gate is locked. He waits until someone opens it, then sneaks inside just before it closes. He searches through the mailboxes but doesn't find Ralph's name, so he moves upstairs to wait. After a while, Ralph comes out and heads into a. Mark follows him silently, watches him settle in at a chess table. Ralph then appears and Mark stays on the sidelines, not approaching. Meanwhile, Sophie starts to worry about her dad. She calls him but gets no reply. Later, Mark is in his hotel room flipping through photos of with Ralph. How happy she looked that night keeps him awake with worries. The next morning, he arrives early sitting at the same table where Ralph usually plays. Ralph shows up and mentions that he always sits there, so Mark invites him to a match. During the game, Ralph reveals that his mother is British, his father Spanish, and he doesn't stay in one place for long. He loves visiting London and New York. Just then, S's message to Mark arrives asking him to let her know he's okay. Mark then inquires about Ralph's travels in England. Ralph says he visited Cambridge and met a woman there, though they'd originally met in Milan. He describes her as a shoe designer wearing a striking red pair when he saw her. She was attractive, but what caught his eye was her shoes, how they looked, their color. He explains how he approached her and she responded as if she'd known him forever. When Mark asks when that was, Ralph says, 12 years ago. Mark is stunned, feeling betrayed and hurt. He quickly asks, and when did you last see her? Ralph says, 9 months ago, but I believe I'll see her again soon. Meanwhile, Sophie and Jake visit Mark's house to check on him. Sophie finds phone and hears Ralph's message. Her doubts about her father deepen. The next day, Mark and Ralph play another chess game at the. Mark asks if Ralph often came to Milan. Ralph confirms and recalls a day at a shoe factory where wanted to end things, but Ralph begged her to escape with him. They danced in front of workers and she was ecstatic. Afterward, it rained, and they ran together under the droplets. Mark remembers returning from Milan when he greeted her at the door and she smiled, saying she missed him so much, how it made him feel happy. But he's unaware of her infidelity. He also recalls her final words in a restaurant earlier, her last chance to tell him how she truly felt. One day, Mark visits Ralph at a museum and asks if he's ever married anyone. Ralph replies, marriage? No, I don't believe in it. Why tie myself down? Besides, I have a son from an affair who lives with his mother and I don't even know him. Mark questions if Ralph is married and Ralph says no, he's been single for years between affairs and travel. The next day they're playing chess again. Ralph taunts Mark, I'm going to win this round, you're trapped. But Mark surprises him, winning with a clever move. Suddenly, Ralph's phone rings. On the caller ID is number. He panics, answers, calls her name and rushes out. Mark follows him, discovering Sophie had called Ralph using her mother's phone. When Ralph hears her voice, he ends the call without speaking, but it rekindles hope in him. The next day, Sophie drops by her father's work to see where he's gone. Meanwhile, Ralph tells Mark that the previous night's call actually came from herself. He says she's the most beautiful woman in the world, and after she left him, he realized she was the only real love he ever had. He recalls details of their relationship, and that moment Mark's rage boils over. Ralph assumes he's upset about losing a chess game and says, it's just a game. Just then, Ralph spots a creditor coming into the. Ralph quickly slips out, giving Mark money he owes and rushing after him. Sophie then appears asking what he's doing. Mark pulls out all her mother's emails, showing her pictures of Ralph and asks, did I fall short? Was I not enough? He then tells Sophie he was pretending to be on those messages. Shocked, she says, how could you do that? Just forget it all, go back to London. When he refuses, she leaves. Next, Mark heads to Ralph's building, hearing noises from the janitor's room. He finds Ralph in a ground-floor apartment, dressed in old clothes. It turns out Ralph is just the building's caretaker. He says he goes down there to care for a little turtle he found. At the entrance, Ralph then shows Mark a hammer which Mark grabs, thinking about killing him, but Ralph hands him the turtle, saying how adorable it is. Mark takes it, then leaves without harm. Returning to his hotel, he finds Sophie ready to leave. She says she's heading back to London and urges him to come along. He refuses and she departs. Later, Mark emails Ralph, pretending to be Lisa, telling him they'll meet at their old spot. An inn by lake on Friday at 8 p.m. Ralph reads the message and, overjoyed, calls Mark, inviting him for dinner at Ralph's place the next day. Mark then borrows the keys to an apartment in the same building, knowing the owners are away. On the scheduled night, Ralph departs his hotel and heads to the restaurant, only to find Mark waiting. Mark then drops a bombshell. "I'm Lisa's husband. She died of cancer 9 months ago." The story flashes back to the moment Mark found out. Lisa had known about her illness for a while but refused treatment to avoid disfigurement. In the present, Ralph says she did the right thing, nodding she looked beautiful even without her treatments. Mark explodes. What? Does her appearance matter if she could been saved? Again, the flashback shows her telling Mark she's happy in their marriage, asking him to take her to a favorite place. She writes Lake on a slip of paper for her daughter to give to Mark after she's gone. As her health worsens, Mark and Sophie take turns caring for her. Now, Ralph questions how Mark discovered about his affair. Mark replies he found photos labeled "love" on her laptop. Ralph admits he's a failure but claims he made feel a love she never had with Mark. He says she loved him, and that the money Mark gave him bought him a nice suit and a suite in a fancy hotel. But Ralph emphasizes he'll never repay that debt. Filled with rage, Mark walks away, ending the confrontation. We see again the moment Lisa passed, with Mark and Sophie by her side. The final shot shows Mark returning to his house in Cambridge and calling Sophie to meet in London. He then travels to meet Ralph, inviting him to a dinner in Lisa's memory. The gathering includes the fashion house owner and friends. When Sophie arrives, she sees her father, proudly introducing Ralph as Lisa's friend, and declares, "I'm here tonight to honor my mom's memory." Lastly, at the train station, Mark and Sophie wait for their train to Cambridge. He turns to her and says, "Ralph's a nobody. He doesn't even deserve our revenge." The film ends there. If you like the movie, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss any new uploads.